Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Kayfabe Central podcast, the second episode of the Kayfabe Central podcast. And if my energy sounds very low, it's because it is. I've already had a busy day. I've had to watch LFG since I missed it due to Dynasty last night, and my ringer's still on. And still have to cover Monday Night Raw tonight. Had to write an article for LFG, had to post that obviously. And I already recorded this podcast. I recorded it and I was using Soundtrap to record the podcast, and it's the same software I use to make music because I also do that from time to time. And the first episode I recorded on Soundtrap and it came out pretty solid. However, this episode did not. There was no audio that came out whatsoever, and I believe it was like a half an hour podcast. So I was very drained after that, and to find out that it didn't even record kind of irritated me a little bit. But we're gonna do this again. I'm using a different software now, and I'm hoping that this works and it goes through and all that good stuff, and I can get this podcast out to you guys as soon as possible um before Tuesday and before Monday Night Raw starts. So we're gonna get through this. Quick self promo before we get into it. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. Hit the notification bell so you're up to date with all the videos that I post on this channel. We do a plethora of different videos, not just the podcast. I have interviews coming soon with professional wrestlers. I have a big one coming eventually. It's been a lot of postpones. We've had to postpone a lot and move the interview around a lot just due to some technical difficulties. But I am sitting down with a local professional wrestler here in Canada this week, and that interview should be up by next week, potentially sooner. But yeah, make sure you're following the Instagram, the Twitter page, or X, whatever you want to call it. The Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is the other one. And make sure you're keeping up to date with the Kayfabe Central website, which is always updated with wrestling content, whether it be Monday Night Raw, NXT, SmackDown, any pay per views or PLEs, Dynamite. In case you miss any of the shows, then you can always go to the Kayfabe Central website to see the results. I always do coverage on pretty much every show. So let's get into AEW Dynasty. The 0 hour, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to. I did have it on. I did watch it. But there was nothing too important for me to pay attention to. We had Crew, which is or CRU, Action Andretti, and Leo Rush and Nick Wayne, who defeated Top Flight, Dante Martin, and Darius Martin and AR Fox. This was a fine match. This was a pretty basic 6-man tag match. We had a cool little hot tag moment with I can't even remember if it was a hot tag or not, but with AR Fox just, clearing house left, right, and center. So that was pretty cool. But other than that, if you missed this match, you didn't miss much. And yeah, there was nothing else to this match. We had the Max Caster Open Challenge also on the 0 hour, and I had no idea who was going to answer this Open Challenge. I thought it was just going to be someone that AEW wanted to get over, but it ended up being Anthony Bowens, which caught me by surprise, and I definitely popped for. Anthony Bowens defeated Max Caster pretty quickly, pretty much squashing Max Caster, and it looks like they're gonna build him up as a single star in the time to come. So interested to see where that goes. And yeah, so that was the end of the 0 hour. Nothing else happened except for them talking about the matches to come on the main card and all that good stuff that they always do on the 0 hour. The actual first match of the main card of the show was a men's Owen Hart Cup quarterfinal match between Will Ospreay defeating Kevin Knight And no surprise here. I think everybody expected Will Ospreay to beat Kevin Knight. Then that's no shot at Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight is a great in ring wrestler. I haven't seen too much of him, but I had the matches I have seen. He is very good, and he definitely has the potential. But I think everybody expected Will Ospreay to win this, and we all expected this to be a good match, in which it was. Um, then we had and I think I mentioned last podcast that I think Will Ospreay is going to win the entire Owen Hart Cup. We had the AEW World Tag Team Championship match with the Hurt Syndicate defeating the Learning Tree, Big Bill, and Brian Keith, who I accidentally, for some reason, called Lee Moriarty in the last podcast episode. So I apologize to Brian Keith. I know he more than likely doesn't listen to this podcast, but just in case, in the future, if any wrestler does listen to this podcast and they hear something like that, I apologize. I have no idea why I called Brian Keith Lee Moriarty by accident, but I did, and it happened. So apologies for that. But back to this match, I they had MJF um punch Big Bill with the diamond ring I assume he had on his hand, and then followed up by a spear by Bobby Lashley to Big Bill, which led to the Hurt Syndicate retaining the tag team titles. I'm not a huge fan of how they went about this. I wasn't really feeling it, and I don't know off the top of my head if I would have been able to think of something better to do with this, to do with MJF or the interference. I can't say for sure. Maybe this is what I would have landed on and done as well. But I honestly just wasn't feeling this. And like I said in the last podcast, I this is not where I saw MJF's next chapter in his career going, but it's probably him just wanting to work with MVP. So yeah, not a huge fan of that ending. Solid match though. It wasn't a terrible match. It was solid enough, and yeah, I guess we just have to see where this whole Hurt Syndicate and MJF angle goes, because we had Bobby Lashley looking confused and then realized it was MJF. So not sure where this is going to go. We had a women's Owen Hart Cup quarterfinal match between Mercedes Moné defeating Julia Hart. Solid match. I'm a fan of Julia Hart, and I mentioned in the last podcast that I think Mercedes Moné is going to win this entire thing. I don't think the entire left side of the bracket even matters in this tournament. I think Mercedes is just going to go ahead and win it. And from what I've heard, I don't know how true it is, that the Owen Hart Cup is actually going to be a title. So it's going to be a belt, and Mercedes Moné wins this tournament. She's going to have another title belt to add to her collection. And then if she wins the AEW Women's World Championship, that'll be another one. And I already don't know some of the titles she's holding. I don't know the name of some of them. Think like one is like the British open weight, something like that. I have no idea. I'm not gonna go ahead and disrespect the title by continuing to try and guess it. But yeah, I think that's how this tournament ends, with Mercedes Moné just winning the entire thing. But solid match between her and Julia. I hope Julia gets some bigger opportunities in the future in AEW, or even if it's outside of WWE, or outside of AEW. Maybe it is WWE in the future. Who knows? I don't see that anytime soon. Um I don't know the extents of her contract and when her contract is up and whatnot. But I am a fan of Julia Hart, and I hope big things are to come for her eventually. We had the AEW World Trios Championship match. The Death Riders, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta defeated Rated, FTR, Cope, aka Edge, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler. The match was fine. It's what happened after the match that got people talking, which was FTR turning on Cope, which I saw coming. I think a lot of people saw this coming. They had it where Cash Wheeler was walking away, and then Dax Harwood turned Cope around and hit him with a pile driver. And they had Cash Wheeler looking like, he was angry at Dax, but then ends up hitting Cope with a shatter machine, and then a assisted pile driver, and then two concertos, which sent Cope out on a stretcher. And this seems like their way of writing off Edge for a few months, for a little while, maybe to nurse another injury that he might have, or something along those lines. So I'm not sure how long he's going to be out for, but he's definitely going to be out for some time. He might be back before All In, because I'd assume you want Cope for your biggest show of the year. But then again, I have no idea. So they could just have him come back after All In. Um, no idea, but this is definitely a way to write Cope off, and it'll be interesting to see FTR as a heel tag team again and see where this goes. We had next we had a singles match for the AEW Women's World Championship. Timeless Tony Storm defeating Megan Bayne by pinfall. And I saw someone say this, or heard someone say it, and I can't remember exactly who, and so I can't give credit to it, but Megan Bayne got the 2006 John Cena monster opponent build for this match, where she wins a few matches, looks dominant in those matches, um, even pinned the champion at one point, Tony Storm. And, in the match itself, she looks dominant, and she dominates most of the match, and then the champion sneaks away with the win, which is what happened here. Tony Storm snuck away with a small package, which I enjoy, actually. I didn't enjoy when AEW used to um overdo the roll up finishes, but it gave the story that Tony Storm went back to the basics and hit Megan Bayne with a small package to retain the title. And I this is a match I didn't pay too much attention to, and I was doing other things at the time, and which at the time was a little more bit more important, and because I think I was still doing the recap for the whole rated FTR breakup thing. But also, I'm not a huge fan of Tony Storm's in ring style, not her talent. She's talented in the ring. There's a reason she's a 4-time AEW Women's World Champion, but I'm just personally not a fan of how she wrestles in the ring, her style. So I didn't pay too much attention to it. The bits that I did see were fine. Didn't seem like there was anything terrible about it. Um, but yeah, so Tony Storm wins with a small package against Megan Bayne. Um, yeah, that was that for that match. We had next we had the Men's Owen Hart Cup Tournament quarterfinals match with Kyle Fletcher defeating Mark Briscoe. Again, not much to talk about in this match. I expected Kyle Fletcher to beat Mark Briscoe. I didn't think Mark Briscoe was going anywhere in this tournament. And yeah, not much. I don't think I paid much attention to this match either. The bits that I did see were good though. So this wasn't a bad match from what I saw, and yeah, it was enjoyable, but very very predictable. With Kyle Fletcher beating Mark Briscoe. Next, we had the Mask versus Title singles match for the Ring of Honor World Championship. Bandito beating Chris Jericho to become the new champion. Now, this was a bit interesting because we had Chris Jericho initially pick up the win by the ref being distracted. I believe it was by Brian Keith. And Chris Jericho took the bat and hit Bandito with it. I can't remember what he calls the bat. He has a name for it, but it's not coming to me at the top of my head. So you guys got to help me out in the comments, or I'll probably remember it after the podcast is finished. But Chris Jericho hit Bandito with the bat and then got the 3 count, which took me by surprise because I was like, whoa, they're actually going with the unmasking angle, which if you don't know anything about like luchador like luchador style or anything about luchador wrestling, the mask is very sacred, and if someone were to rip it off of them, it's considered very disrespectful. And yeah, it is very disrespectful for a someone to rip off a luchador mask because of how sacred it is. So I was very surprised. But then they had Bandito's mom and sister, who was at ringside, tell Aubrey Edwards, who came down, that Chris Jericho hid the bat behind the stairs. Now, this was at the same time the commentators were saying there's no instant replay in wrestling, even though there is. So they tell Aubrey Edwards the bat is behind the stairs. She finds the bat, and then the referees decide that the match needs to be restarted. Bandito pretty much immediately wins after the match is restarted, and he wins the ROH world title. So the cool concept. They definitely had me fooled for a second, which I think was the point of this, and very very interesting way to go about it too. You could have just used the instant replay, but they just took the word of Bandito's mom and sister. Um, so I just found that funny, just because, like, what if in a case, like, obviously that wasn't the case, but what if, like, they just made it up, like, so he could win? Would they have believed it? Um, so that happened. I believe Bandito has won this title before, back in 2021, and I don't watch Ring of Honor to really, like, care too much about a Bandito world title reign. I know I believe it's May, that they're doing Death Before Dishonor, I believe it is. So, and I will be doing coverage for that show. But I like for that show, I want Bandito to face someone where I can watch it and be like, okay, this is cool. Like, I'm invested in this, not just a match where he's defending it and it's like, flip, 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 flip. Bandito retains. So that's what I'm looking for when I watch Death Before Dishonor. I believe it's the pay per view that they have coming up. I can't remember if it's in May or if it's after that. I don't have it in front of me, and I usually have all my notes organized, but I didn't expect to re-record this podcast at the same time, so bear with me. Next we had the singles match for the AEW TNT Championship, where we also had a new champion with Adam Cole defeating Daniel Garcia, and this was a good match as well. This entire card, except for one match, which I'll get into, was pretty good. This entire card, their wrestling was pretty good, and AEW usually does a solid job at delivering good in ring showcases. And here's my thing with AEW. With AEW, they have these like long pay-per-views. This was a 10-match card, 12 if you include the 0 hour, and it was back to back to back matches. Whereas which I like sometimes, like a lot of time I like that. But then with WWE, it's like you have a match and then they waste a whole bunch of times on like backstage stuff, advertisements, and all this stuff, which most of the time I don't like. But sometimes it's like, okay, there's this match and now I can take a break, and it's like you're watching multiple shows instead of just one long one. So like AEW is like the complete opposite of that. It's just match, 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 match. So I do like that format that AEW has. Sometimes it can get exhausting, especially doing coverage for this. Like 10 matches was like, okay, damn. But yeah, we had Adam Cole beat Daniel Garcia to become the new TNT champion. Nothing Adam Cole has done in AEW has really caught me by interest. And like I wasn't a fan of any of the random tag team stuff that he did, or when he was in the world title picture. But then again, he's never held a title in AEW. And now we get to see if he can be a better champion and better mid card champion in AEW than he was WWE. And maybe now that he's holding a title, we'll get a different Adam Cole. We'll get the Adam Cole that we've been wanting to see for so long. So I'm hoping that is the case. I do like Adam Cole. I'm a fan of Adam Cole. He's great in the ring, and yeah, hopefully we get something from this title reign. The story of this match was Adam Cole was going for the Panama Sunrise, but then tweaked his ankle, and that was the main focal point of the match, and where Daniel Garcia focused on most, and then until he Adam Cole finally hit two Panama Sunrises, followed by a last shot to win the title. So again, solid match by these two. Then we had my favorite match of the night, the three-way match for the AEW International Championship. Kenny Omega defeating Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey. Like I said, my favorite match of the night. These three absolutely delivered, and I was amazed. The ninth match of the night had me, invested, and that's a thing that I liked from this pay per view is that there was good in ring showcases here. They were really good, and so there were some matches that I alluded to earlier that I didn't pay much attention to, but this match, 9 matches in, this is what we needed. We needed a upbeat, fast paced match like this before the main event, which I was not a fan of. It I'll get into, and but yeah, and then after the match, we had Kazuchika Okada come out, who is currently the Continental Champion, and had a very brief stare down with Kenny Omega because Kenny just decided to leave the ring and go back because, after like a 30-minute match, the stare down is the last thing he wants. But I like that, though. I like the fact that they just did a brief stare down and just didn't do the whole thing where they're like milking this rivalry. So I was a fan of that, and then Okada just left the ring, whatever. Then the main event we had for the AEW World Championship, John Moxley defeating Swerve Strickland. Um, I did not like this match. I didn't like it. It was very slow paced. There's nothing very interesting until like the end where we had Hangman Adam Page come out looking like he's going to deliver a buckshot lariat to Swerve Strickland, but then sets his eyes on John Moxley. Looks like he's going to hit Moxley and help Swerve win the title, but then he eventually does not get to do either of those because the rest of the Death Riders come out and attack Hangman Adam Page. Page fights back, but then gets taken out, eventually leading to John Moxley retaining the AEW World Championship. In which I almost forgot the biggest point of this match, which I have written down in front of me. So after Hangman gets taken out, we have Swerve in the middle of the ring, about to take advantage, and then the lights go out. And the lights come back on. The Young Bucks are holding Swerve Strickland. The Young Bucks deliver the double V trigger. They have a name for it, and that I'm completely forgetting again. And so they give them the double V trigger, which allows Moxley to retain the AEW World Championship. So very interesting. I haven't really looked at the Twitter reactions yet for the Young Bucks returning. If people are like, oh my gosh, the Young Bucks are back, or if they're just like, oh, these guys again, or if it's just any other reactions. So I'm definitely going to look on Twitter and, Facebook and Instagram to see what the reactions are to the Young Bucks returning. I don't know the angle that they're going for here. When it comes to John Moxley and his title reign and the whole Death Riders thing, I've just been on autopilot because it's been nothing, and I'm holding on to the thought and the prediction that this is just going to continue until Darby Allin comes back. And because I think Darby Allin is the one to dethrone Moxley, whether it be at an All In or who knows when. But I think this is just going to be the case, and this has been the case for multiple Moxley matches. Just very slow paced and not that entertaining. And this didn't give the feeling. And it's the same thing at Revolution with him against Cope. It didn't give the big final match, main event, world title vibes. That was a lot, but it didn't give that big match vibe that they were pushing. Because after 9 matches, you're like, okay, here comes the main event. This is going to be the hardest hitting match. This needs to, you know, this needs to wow us before the end of the pay per view. In which, yes, we have the Young Bucks return, but the match itself is it just wasn't good in my opinion. Because sure, we're gonna be talking about the Young Bucks returning, but people like me who do coverage for these things, we're gonna tell you, like, wait a minute. Yes, the Young Bucks returned, but the match itself was not good. This was supposed to be the match of the night. This is supposed to be their world title fight. Yeah, we had a ladder table spot. That was cool. Um, Even though they were outside for like a count of like 30. But that's beside the point. Um, yeah, when it comes to this Death Riders thing, I just want it to be over. And I've said that before. I said that for my Revolution predictions. And I'm going to continue on that trend that I just want this thing to be over. So, yeah, there's that. Let me know what you guys think about the Young Bucks returning, because I haven't seen too many reactions about it. I don't know where this goes. I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest. I'm already tired out with this Death Riders thing. I don't see what adding the Young Bucks does to this. If, the Young Bucks added to the Death Riders, because, the whole elite thing didn't go well with, injuries and all that stuff. So I really don't know where they're planning to take this. And I can't say I'm fully invested in finding out. But maybe they'll change my mind. Maybe they'll hit us with a swerve. No pun intended. That'll catch my attention. But as of right now, I'm remaining on autopilot when it comes to John Moxley and the Death Riders, and now apparently the Young Bucks. But that's gonna do it for this AEW review. Let me know what you guys thought about this pay per view. Overall, I enjoyed this pay per view. It gets a thumbs up from me. And I think that they did a solid job at structuring this pay per view. I think the triple threat, the 3-way match going on second last, was very vital because, and I don't think a lot of people are going to take note of that, but that is what we needed. Honestly, if I knew how the world title match was going to turn out, I would have just had that main event. But yeah, overall, this pay per view was good. Good in ring talent on this card, and good matches produced by all the talent on this card. So, yeah, that's gonna do it for this pay per view podcast episode. I need a name for these pay per view review podcasts because I didn't really put too much time and thought into a name for them. So if you guys have name ideas for these pay-per-view reviews or predictions podcasts, let me know in the comments. Shoot me a message on Instagram or whatever it is that you use, and let me know. I am going to brainstorm some ideas, but we'll see. So yeah, make sure you guys subscribe, like, and comment. Hit the notification bell so you're up to date with all the videos that I post on this channel. We don't just do podcast videos. We do all sorts of wrestling content related videos. We're going to be doing interviews soon. I had a big one lined up for you guys, but it keeps getting postponed because of certain technical difficulties between me and the wrestler. But we are going to get that sorted out eventually, and I am going to get that interview for you guys. I'm not going to announce who it is just yet, until I have that all sorted out. I do have a interview this week with a local professional wrestler here in Canada, very well known Also not going to announce it just yet. It will be a couple more days until I announce that. And yeah, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully that interview gets out to you guys by WrestleMania week, or maybe even before WrestleMania week, which I believe is not next weekend. It'll actually be out before WrestleMania week. I don't know why I was thinking WrestleMania week was next week. But yeah, hopefully that does. It is next weekend actually, because today is Monday. I'm losing my mind here, guys. I'm going to wrap up this podcast and get everything sorted, get all my notes organized because, yeah. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought. I'll see you guys in the next podcast. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Take it easy.